Hello and welcome to the big picture. Incompetent investigations and failed prosecutions have been the bane of the Indian criminal justice system for a long time. Thousands of criminal cases end up in acquittals of the accused in a routine manner because the failure both on the investigation and prosecution front. In a ghastly case of rape and killing of a 6-year-old girl in Ahmedabad, both the Supreme Court and the High Court were forced to acquit the accused for lack of evidence. This has prompted the Apex Court to direct all state governments to set up a procedure to fix responsibility for acquittals in serious criminal cases. Both the investigating authorities and the public prosecutors and their role in such acquittals will now be under scrutiny and held accountable. Though this is a welcome step which will hopefully shake up the criminal justice system, if it can be implemented, the question is how viable is this order? Will the state governments be able to establish a viable system to hold such erring officers accountable? What will be the impact of it on the justice system? We will discuss all this today with an eminent panel of guests. I have with me Justice B.A. Khan, former Chief Justice of the Jammu and Kashmir High Court, Prakash Singh, former DGP of Uttar Pradesh, and Shilpi Jain, a criminal lawyer. Welcome to all of you. Justice Khan, I would like to come to you first. Is this order of the Supreme Court, does it in any way indicate the failure of the prosecution and the investigating machinery in this country?
Oh, that has been well known for ages. It's not first time that Supreme Court is noticing it. In fact, this direction seems to be arising out of a despair, out of a frustration and helplessness of the Supreme Court and the judicial and our judicial system. But having said that, I think it's well begun is half done, and better late than never. And then the only thing, as you pointed out, is that we have been having these kinds of directions for quite some time, decades back also. In Prakash Singh's case, it's still not being implemented, the police reforms and so on and so forth. So as you rightly pointed out, if there is a sincere and purposeful follow-up, this may result in heralding a kind of a reform in the system. See, as you know, our criminal judicial system has failed. It has broken down almost. And the reasons are known to everybody. We have been grappling with the issue for a number of years. We have had so many committees, Malimat Committee, Madhav Menon Committee, Law Commission reports, suggesting several things and not being implemented. And on the ground, it is not making any difference at all. It's a marginal difference here and there. Therefore, the need is of implementation. For example, this direction says that you fix the accountability of a lapse committed by an investigating officer. Now, question is, where is the investigating officer? Where is your independent investigating agency? Which courts have been directing, Supreme Court has been directing, have an independent investigating agency. Police has its multifarious activities, from cigarette smoking to law and order to anything under the sky. Where is the time for, and who is your investigator? Where is his training? And where is his equipment? Where is his infrastructure?
No, the
who
important,
are you holding for that?
We will ask Mr. Prakash Singh about these points which you have raised, but I want you to address this. The public prosecutor now comes under scrutiny. Is this something which was also something which needed fixing for a long time?
No, see, always. See, public prosecutor is, in fact, if you see the Supreme Court judgment in totality, it is a lesson of sorts, how a criminal case should be presented to a magistrate. What should the investigator do? What should the prosecutor do? And it has left out what should the magistrate do. Because he goes on adjourning and adjourning. And it takes ages before a guilty can be brought to the book. Now, prosecutor has been always there, but who has looked at the prosecutor's recruitment? Who has looked at the prosecutor's merit? Who has looked at the prosecutor's independence to ask the investigating agency that you are not coming with the right evidence, do it again, as the Supreme Court has said. that if prosecution is there,
they must. Supreme Court has said that if necessary, reinvestigate the whole
that's
thing.
why I am saying it's a lesson.
Absolutely.
It's a lesson for prosecutors.
Let me get Mr. Prakash Singh. Mr. Prakash Singh, this is entirely in your domain. What has been done? You know, it's a continuation, I suppose, of your case and what the Supreme Court has said. As Mr. Justice Khan pointed out, it is in frustration the Supreme Court seems to have come out with this order. But what are the viability of setting up such kind of a mechanism to keep investigating officers as well as the public prosecutors on a check?
See, basically the direction is well intentioned.
Yes.
And the frustration of the Supreme Court is to be appreciated. But the judgment does not take a holistic view of the totality of problems that begin from the stage of registration of crime to the submission of charge sheet, and then from the beginning of trial to the conclusion. It doesn't take into account the complex set of factors that interplay.
You mean the order doesn't take into account the complex set of?
Yes, it doesn't take into account. You see, firstly, take the police part.
Sir, before you continue, I just want to, Mr. Soli Sorabjee, the former Attorney General of India, has joined us. Welcome to the show, Mr. Sorabjee. I'll come to you. Yes, Mr. Prakash.
You see, firstly, at the police stage, at the police stage, do you have enough investigators? Is the manpower adequate? Have you insulated investigation from extraneous influences? Do they have adequate forensic support? Do they get adequate training? I mean, all those factors are to be taken into account. You are basically, in one sentence, I would say that you have not cared.
You have not talks about training.
No, you have not cared to improve the police infrastructure, the police investigative machinery, and you are trying to fix blame. Okay, even that is understood.
Mr. Singh, I just want, for the sake of the viewers also, what is the conviction rate in serious criminal cases nowadays? 15-20%, or is it? Or is that also?
I would say near about 20%.
Yes.
Not more than that. But and then separation of investigation from law and order, which the Supreme Court has mandated. But even that is not being carried out. So unless these basic prerequisites are made, there is no point in just fixing the blame on police. But
you agree that there is, Justice Khan says and the whole world says that the criminal justice system in this country has collapsed.
You see that Justice Khan doesn't have to say that. Justice Malima said this in black and white.
Yes.
Long ago,
right.
10 years back, he said this in black and white, and yet nobody bothered about his report. I think which was the best report on criminal justice system, but it was trashed by the human rights group, and the government got so scared with the criticism of the human rights lobby that it didn't push with the implementation of the Malimat. So, I mean, you have not cared to improve the police and the prosecution. You see, there's a lot of confusion in prosecution department, some of which was hinted by Justice Khan. You see, in our days, prosecution and police functioned in tandem, and it was under the police. And every case in our time, in every case which ended in acquittal, the prosecution was asked to prepare an acquittal report. And then after perusing that acquittal report, the superintendent of police would decide whether to go in appeal or to punish the investigator. And
so it was already there?
Yes.
But that has been abandoned now?
No, it has been abandoned because now the prosecution is independent.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't have control over prosecution. The arrangement when prosecution...
So, earlier the SP could take that decision?
Yes, SP. I mean, I as a superintendent of police remember having punished several investigators for bad investigation which ended in acquittals. But now I can't do that. The prosecution is outside my purview, beyond my control. So, that has also, you see, CBI is the only agency...
Yes.
CBI is the only agency where investigation and prosecution are now under the director.
Okay, let me get Mr. Sorabjee. Mr. Sorabjee, both Justice Khan and Mr. Prakash Singh have raised very important issues. You think this order is this the right time for this order to come, or is this something which should have been done a long time back? Or how do you look at this entire order and the viability of its implementation?
And there's one thing. Whether it could be done long time back, there's no answer. Better late than never.
Yeah.
Please appreciate the basic issue involved.
Yes, sir.
Fair and expeditious trial is an essential component of Article 21 in our Constitution.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
Now, if there is no fair trial because of various reasons,
yes,
I mean clear deliberate negligence, other omissions, then Article 21 to that extent is not implemented. You see, this order should be seen as a step to ensure accountability.
Right.
Accountability of those people who are in charge of bringing the guilty to the book, and in that process, if the guilty gets away, that's bad enough for a society. If the wrong person gets convicted, that's still worse.
Right.
So you're right. There are other issues which are minor issues like separation, and Prakash Singh knows I was in that committee, police reform, nothing has been done. But let's not forget the fact that the Supreme Court, to my mind, has taken a step in the right direction.
Okay.
Maybe if some other things are left out, that can be supplemented. But don't look upon this as merely something to blame the prosecution. No. Is to ensure accountability of those people on whose functions the life and liberty of citizens depend. And to that extent, I welcome the decision.
Okay. Shilpi, you have been a lawyer, you have
Yes.
taken up several criminal cases. How often do you see deliberate lapses on the part of the public prosecutors or the investigating officers when it comes to dealing with criminal cases?
The investigation in our country is handled by the lowest rung officers, sub-inspectors, ASI, inspectors. How are they appointed? Many of them are not even graduates when they are appointed. Their pay scales are very low. They are drenched in corruption. It is well known in India. They are totally ignorant. And likewise the prosecutors. Not only are they ignorant, the cream in the profession doesn't want to join prosecution because again their pay scale is very low. A defense lawyer gets a minimum of 50,000 per appearance even in the lower courts. Prosecutors don't get that much even in 4 months. So why will a good lawyer want to become a prosecutor? One is this. And two is that the system is such, when a police officer is transferred from one police station to the other, for transfers itself their quotas are fixed. It's up to 20 to 25 lakhs for transfer from one police station to another police station in Delhi. It's well known. From where do they get that kind of money? They are drenched in corruption. The entire system is drenched. We have to change the system of appointments. We have to change the qualification. The minimum requirement must be, they must be graduates. The entrance exam must be much tougher than they are. I would say that the police officer must be a law graduate, so that it's a presumption that at least he has knowledge of law. Here they begin to study a bit of law after they become police officers, and they are the ones laying the foundation for the criminal case. So invariably they fumble and they are drenched in corruption. But having said that, this kind of a judgment will set into motion a very wrong trend.
Why do you say so?
It will bring into motion a trend where the police officers who are already ignorant, corrupt, now because of the fear of punishment, they will be compelled with a shabby investigation to get a man convicted by hook or by crook. That is not what law and justice are all about. Law and justice is that the investigation must file their charge sheet, and the judge must decide based on that charge sheet whether the evidence makes out a case for conviction or not. Interference between the judiciary and investigation, there is no place for that.
Okay.
There are judgments, several judgments of Supreme Court where they say that the judges cannot even, say that the investigation is to be done by a particular angle. Popular Muthia's recent Supreme Court judgment, it says that the Supreme Court or High Court cannot even give the angle by which the investigation is to be done, leave alone say that every investigation must result in conviction.
Okay. Mr. Sorabjee, Shilpi makes a very interesting point. She says that this order could force officers. I'll come to you, Justice Khan. I'm sure you want to react to that. Yeah, Mr. Sorabjee?
Yeah. Yes, please. No, I don't agree with it at all.
Ah.
Because if it does, then the officer will be brought to book.
Okay.
I don't know how, if they are lawyers, how will they do it. Question is deliberate negligence, deliberate inaction, and this may not cure the whole problem. I agree. Corruption, if there is, that won't go. But this is a step in the right direction. I don't think how it will help me anyway unwholesome or anyway unbeneficial.
Okay, Justice Khan, the point Shilpi is making is that there will be a lot of pressure on the police officers, as the investigating officers, as well as the prosecution now. So they may use all kinds of methods, because this is all about acquittals. If there is a conviction, then that doesn't come under scrutiny.
To do what? Conviction is not for the police officer to do. This argument is totally misplaced. This will promote efficiency. This will promote accountability. Investigator's job is to investigate. Then present case is for the prosecution. Conviction, whether it is to be done or is not to be done, is for the courts to do. So how can we say that out of fear of punishment they will cook up cases and manage?
Which in any case is happening now also.
No. Which in any case it will promote, if it is implemented, it will promote efficiency, it will promote accountability. They will make it doubly sure that they present a good case to the magistrate.
Mr. Prakash Singh, these are all we are all hopeful that something like this will happen. But my question is this: there will be this huge. If you are saying that about 20% of the cases end in convictions of criminal cases, which means 80% are acquittals. Even if we are talking of serious criminal cases, will the system be able to handle this kind of a huge number of cases, and what kind of a mechanism or procedure which needs to be established to bring people to hold people accountable?
You see, as Mr. Sorabjee said, it's a step in the right direction.
Yes.
No.
As you rightly said,
no
right in the
dispute
beginning,
about that.
The intention is good.
And the intention is transparent.
Yes.
The idea is to ensure accountability. To that extent, also, I have no problem. But please give police adequate number of investigating officers. Please ensure separation of investigation from crime and law and order. And please insulate police from extraneous influences. And there are certain other things like Protection of Witnesses Act. All those things are still in the pipeline. You see, between the submission of the charge sheet and the decision...
No, Mr. Prakash Singh, you are saying that the existing systems, the existing vacancies in the departments and things like that are what are resulting in this kind of deliberate... No, we're talking of deliberate lapses. We're talking of deliberate lapses, malified motives.
The line is very thin.
The investigating officers, the line is?
The line is very thin.
The line is very thin. Mr. Sorabjee, this will be the typical argument of a police officer, even Mr. Prakash Singh, who is held very highly in this country for his, but somebody like him, the police officers will say the line is very thin. How will you decide what is malified, what is, genuine lapse?
But I think Prakash Singh, with his experience, I'm sure we'll be able to decide whether the act was of deliberate negligence, gross negligence, malified the intention not to go on with it, or an error of judgment, pure and simple. I'm sure Prakash Singh, with his experience, can certainly detect it.
Mr. Sorabjee, the existing, you were talking of Article 21 and things like that. Are there any, have there been any attempts in the past to bring about this kind of accountability? Because before you came, as Mr. Justice Khan was saying, that the criminal justice, it's a public knowledge, it's no secret that the criminal justice system in this country has collapsed.
Correct. If it has collapsed, this is a step in the right direction to salvage it to some extent.
My question, Mr. Sorabjee, is will the state governments be able to, as I was asking Mr. Singh also, we know that the conviction rate is not more than 20%. In some states, it is much less than that, which means that 80% of these serious criminal cases, there are acquittals in that. How do you handle such huge numbers?
Look, sometimes the acquittal may be on merits where there is really no evidence on which a person can be convicted, where there is no material to say there is guilt before reasonable doubt. So it can be every time, because there is no conviction rate is less, doesn't imply malify the intention of the prosecuting agency. This in those limited class of cases where it is apparent that they have taken steps or not taken steps as a result of deliberate inaction and definite negligence, or if I may say so, well, malify the intention not to proceed with it.
Mr. Justice Khan, the enormity of the cases which will land up on whatever kind of mechanism is going to be set up by the state governments, You think that any good will come out of it at the end of it, at the end of the day?
Why not? I think much good will if it is followed up again sincerely. And if Supreme Court goes
the order says, yes, Mr. Sorabjee?
I wish Supreme Court had gone a step further,
yes,
and would monitor it after 6 months. For example, 6 months schedule they have given for the governments to examine cases.
No, for 6 months to set up some kind of a mechanism.
No, mechanism is a different thing.
Yes.
To examine,
no, I am talking of the mechanism. What kind of a mechanism will? Who is going to be?
See, mechanism is very easy to be set up. For example, in their own executive instructions or rules, if they say that investigator, if found guilty of a lapse, will be proceeded like this.
No, as Mr. Prakash Singh was pointing out earlier, the SP had this, authority.
I don't agree there. I don't agree with Mr. Prakash Singh's there, because that time it was a part of the police,
yes,
and it had disadvantages.
So
it had disadvantages also. They were doing
because of the nexus.
They were the police bidding. That's
yes,
why we demanded that there must be an independent prosecution.
So you think that prosecution has to be independent of?
Yes, just as we are demanding that there must be an independent investigating agency, there must be an independent prosecution agency. Which prosecutor who can stand up tomorrow and say that this investigator has presented a false case or a bogus case or a worthless case? If he is a policeman, he can't.
No, you have a strong argument. Mr. Justice Khan has a strong argument, Mr. Prakash. You have to admit that.
As far as I know,
in one case he may have done it.
As far as I know,
otherwise it was police. It was a part of the police thing.
Earlier, the investigation and the prosecution machineries, they worked in some kind of synchronization.
Right. But
in US today, let me complete.
You call it synchronization, others call it nexus.
But you call it, in US even today, every police station has a prosecutor is posted there.
Right.
Just to ensure that police and prosecution work in harmony. But here, in the name of independence, we have separated them in a manner which has led to a complete drop in, a major drop in the conviction rate. And secondly, the two work in different compartments. There is not much.
Okay.
CBI is the only agency which combines both, and that is what is responsible for better convictions in CBI.
No, they have 6% only. What is better?
No, CBI convictions are much better.
6%
no,
only.
my dear sir.
Mr. Sorabjee, this is an interesting point. You have been the Attorney General of India. You have grappled with these kind of issues. Now, Justice Khan and Mr. Prakash Singh have very divergent views on this issue of whether the prosecution and the investigating agency should act in tandem, should be working together, or should they be independent of each other?
Look, that's a very important broad question. In the police reforms, they have suggested separation of this. What I want to say is, please concentrate on what would happen on the effects of the order. This is a step. This is not the final step.
Right.
And the monitoring can be given to the high courts.
Right.
Supreme Court need not be burdened with all this. This is not a perfect ideal solution, but it's much better than doing nothing.
Shilpi, in your experience, what are the main reasons why the case collapses in the court, the criminal cases? Obvious ones. There are several criminal cases about which we read when the kind of during the initial stage when the story comes out, and later we see that people are acquitted. What are the main reasons? Is it lack of evidence, or hostility of the eyewitnesses and things like that? And how will this Supreme Court order be able to?
Lack of competence.
And lack of.
Competence of the prosecutor.
Exactly, competence of the prosecutor. Yes, Shilpi.
Yes, very crucial reason is that the prosecutor's caliber and that of the defense lawyer, they do not match. It's unfortunate, and the reasons are obvious. As I told you, that the best in the profession are not keen to join prosecution. Now, many countries abroad have a very logical point in separating the prosecution from the police investigation, and they say that the police is an interested party. Right. They have investigated a case, and if you join the prosecution and the investigation, police having investigated a case, they will want every investigation to end in conviction.
Right.
So it must be an independent prosecutor who must then decide that the case investigated by police whether it is authentic and good enough to be sent up for prosecution and good enough to be sent up and to hold a man guilty for a penal offence. So rightly they have held the two separate,
there's no
because the
dispute
police
on that.
becomes an interested party and will want and to end in conviction. But in our country it's all jumbled up from stage one to the end. They keep exchanging views all the time and shaking hands all the time.
No, but Shilpi, do you think that this order will bring about some change for the better in the criminal justice system?
Not at all.
You don't think so?
Because you see, it does not take into consideration the fact that an acquittal is not always miscarriage of justice. If there are several false complaints, an acquittal must also mean that the police may have, owes an explanation, and there are many countries where if there is acquittal, the prosecutor is hauled up because they feel that we owe compensation to the accused.
Okay, I think you have...
Every time an acquittal does not mean miscarriage of justice.
Okay, that's a typical defense lawyer's point of view, that every acquittal is not a...
but that is part of reality also. That is what law and justice are all about.
No,
law is not synonymous with prosecution, for heaven's sake.
Your point is well taken, Shilpi. Yes, Justice Khan. That, this is also a point that, it's all acquittals cannot be, this order presumes that all acquittals are miscarriage of justice.
No, but who says that? I think that's misreading of the order. It's only of those...
No one says that.
No one says that.
No one says that. No,
you don't think that's the presumption, Mr. Sorabjee?
No.
High acquittal rate, the police is shoddy.
No.
Yes,
just a minute.
Yes, Mr. Sorabjee.
Acquittal, may I come in?
Yes.
Acquittal can happen when there's really no evidence
that is the message.
to pronounce the person guilty.
Right. So in this case also, in this particular case of a girl's...
But frankly, I don't...
Yes, sir. Please, quick.
Sorry.
Yes.
Who's it?
Yes, Mr. Sorabjee, you.
Hello?
Yeah, you can please finish your... What do you think?
No, I quite agree. I agree that acquittals can be really for good reasons.
Right.
Namely, there was no evidence
on
which a man can be convicted and declared of his liberty.
Right.
But what I can't understand is, it's all very well to say, look at the difference between what the prosecutor's paid and the defense lawyer. That's in every case. Look at the difference what a government lawyer is paid in the High Court and the persons of the petitioners. I mean, these are, you're just trying to, if I may say so, find fault with it.
Okay.
What I am saying is, it's not a complete solution, it's not an ideal solution, it's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
And if the prosecutor is independent, well, certainly he'll tell the court, no, there's no evidence. Which you can pronounce him guilty.
Okay, very quickly, both of you.
Girish, what we have to bear in mind is that
the
Supreme Court was not dealing with the reform in the criminal judicial administration system. It was dealing with the rape case.
Correct.
It found there was no evidence and it felt distressed and they said we are heartbroken.
Yes.
And they have given certain directions which are more in the nature of observations than any decision, so to say.
Okay.
If those are followed up, it will lead to some good.
Yes.
That's all we are saying.
I support the Supreme Court direction. My only point is that it should be accompanied by three things.
Right.
Adequate number of investigators, separation of investigation from law and order, insulation of investigative machinery from extraneous influences. Ensure these three things, and then after that you hang them.
And you continue to say that investigation and prosecution should be working together.
Well, that's a separate issue. I think let us not.
Okay. On that note, we need to end. This is a very interesting debate. I'm sure it will continue, and we will wait and watch how
another debate.
Yes, it's another debate, and we'll wait and watch how the state governments will react to this direction of the Supreme Court and what kind of a mechanism they'll set up. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Soli Sorabjee, Prakash Singh, Justice Khan and Shilpi Jain. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.